MicroCon 2022! We just got back from what was by far the biggest and most elaborate meeting of micronations in history, and the Empire of Aeternia was lucky enough to be a part of it. From trips to the strip, to government meetups, to awe-inspiring speeches, the weekend was a non-stop rush. It all started with our plane trip to Las Vegas. The flight was about 3.5 hours, which is longer than I've ever been on a plane, but Tiff and I just passed out for most of it. As we started to come into Vegas, we went from pitch black darkness of the empty desert, and then all of a sudden, boom, the twinkling lights of the city. From there, we got into the hotel, and Tiff, Steven, and I were exhausted, so we didn't film much that night, but the view from our elevator told us our stay was going to be pretty incredible. The next morning, Steven informed us that we had been invited by Emir Charles Ross of Ruthenia and Princess Chloe of Sancretosia to a sightseeing tour of the Strip just before the festivities that night. In true micronational fashion, our tour was worldwide. We stood amongst kings and giants in Egypt, stopped to see lights in New York, and had a parade through the streets of Paris. Then it's back to the room, prepping for the first stage of MicroCon 2022, the welcome reception. The first night is designed around nations unveiling their display, rubbing shoulders with delegates, and talking to the press. I thought our setup was going to knock people's socks off, but I was really impressed by every nation's efforts and attention to detail in their display. As the evening started winding down, we went on and mixed and mingled, made new micronational friends, and even were lucky enough to get some autographs. Unfortunately for Emir Charles, after our big day on the town, he slept right through the evening's reception. And he was not happy about that, but honestly, who could blame him? But no attendees would dare miss what was in store the next day. Saturday was the big event, the day I had to give my speech. Was I really ready to stand in front of world leaders and tell them what's what? I mean, who am I? Who are we? We're Aeternians. And in Aeternian fashion, I walked up, gathered my thoughts, and said what I thought needed to be said. And you know what? It went pretty well. If you want to check out my full speech though, you'll have to see it in another video here. After that, we had the wonderful evening reception. We had a beautiful banquet spread. Everybody got their food. There was camera crew mixing with delegates, mixing with other press, and it was truly a sight to behold. And everybody was winding up to get ready for the evening's award ceremony. This was a big deal. Micronations planned this and prepped for this for months, sometimes designing awards, figuring out which candidates are going to meet the cut for their specific awards and achievements. And for myself, I goofed Aeternia's part of it. And so everybody was getting ready for this event. And I ended up jumping the gun on it. I ended up giving our one single award, which of course was going to go to Grand Duke Travis McHenry of West Arctica. I ended up giving it to him early, before the banquet even began, because there was this period in between where people were supposed to give away smaller awards. They were supposed to kind of do little pleasantries and little nice handouts of just almost like gift bag type things to each other. And that was when I thought the awards were being presented. So I went ahead and gave him, just kind of informally pulled him to the side and gave him our award. And he was very thankful. We had a good laugh. He exchanged an award with me as well. And it was nice. But then after that, we all sit and we get to eating. And there's this huge event going on with the actual award ceremony and people coming up and presenting their awards. But it was a beautiful sight to behold. There were plenty of people who were really, really shocked to be getting these awards, people who were really flattered. And at the end of the day, it was nice to see a whole bunch of micronations coming together, making friends, and being able to kind of go back to their people and declare that they had made an accomplishment there at MicroCon. Even if it was just being able to make a new friend, they had an award to go back with saying, hey, I have made a connection to another group of people. There are people out there who recognize us, people out there who honor us. And that was just cool to see. Oh, and I almost forgot, we finally were able to give the 5 imperial notes that Sultan Randy Williams of Slojamistan purchased to him. We had a wonderful event of it. We did our official wax seal ceremony for him, and he was very appreciative. We got to meet for the first time as well. So this was an event not only in being able to officially give him this and have it be a nice personal gesture between heads of state, but we were also able to meet as heads of state and as friends for the first time. So it warmed my heart to be able to be in that moment with him, and I hope it is not the last that we are able to do with Slowjamistan. But that just about wrapped up the evening. That was the final day of MicroCon that we were going to be there. The next day they did a bowling event, but Tiffany and I had a plane to catch that day, so we were going to be headed out, and unfortunately we missed both events. We missed our plane heading out that morning, so we ended up staying an extra night in Las Vegas and just had some fun to ourselves, had kind of a nice relaxing evening. But then also we ended up missing bowling, and we ended up having our own bowling event with Steve and Tiffany and myself, so that was a pretty fun evening. So then after having missed our flight, after having that wonderful little bowling experience with Steve and kind of doing the Aeternian version of what was going on with all the rest of the micronations that day, we ended up saying our sad goodbyes to Steven, which is also like a heartbreaking moment a little bit, because we've only gotten to see Steven a few times, and I hope to be able to see him a lot more soon. So that was sad to have to part ways as Aeternians again, but it was good to have that moment with him. And then from there, we basically just had a lazy night in the hotel room. We had fun, we hung out, and then the next day we were up to catch our early morning flight back to Alabama. So we took a plane, headed back out, and it was honestly a pretty finalizing moment to the trip. It was something that not only marked the official end of the trip as us physically leaving Las Vegas, but also really resonated with me as this conclusion of the effect that we had at MicroCon. We were really trying to put our name out there. We were really trying to shake hands with people, to ask those questions of what the micronational community needs, who we can be, and what we can bring to the table for the community. And we left with a lot of friends. We left with a lot of connection. And whether it was seeing people posting our pictures and pictures with us on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, whether it was seeing all the different friends and different connections that other micronations had made between themselves, or whether it was even having heads of state just sending me text messages as we're getting on the plane and getting off the plane about how they're excited to work together, about how it was good to meet, and about how we have to do this or that at the next MicroCon together. It was cool. It finally felt like, out of having talked to some of these people online, out of having reached out to the community kind of informally through the internet, we got to see this pocket of micronations that exist and that interact in person regularly. And it was nice. It felt like we were in our little spot. It felt like we had made our home in the community, and I'm thankful for it. I loved the experience. It was not what I expected at all. I think a lot of micronationalists expect MicroCon to be this incredibly extravagant thing that's super, super formal and super official, which it was to some degree, but there was also this for old time's sake feeling for it. There was this connection between people who are doing this wild and crazy thing and can relate to each other to some extent. So it felt both nerve-wracking and exciting and calming all at the same time. So I hope any of you out there who run micronations, who support other micronations, who are the citizens of micronations, get to experience that at some point in your life. I would certainly recommend it. But I would also say that it taught me that what making connections are in this community is about a lot more than just meeting up. It's about a lot more than just those big gallant events. It's about making a connection with the person on the other side of the screen, with the person in the other head of state's office. It is about becoming friends and about trying to understand someone else's point of view. And I hope that I can get to learn a lot more about that in the future. That being the case, I had a ton of fun. I hope you guys had fun watching this and hanging out with us, experiencing the MicroCon experience as close to firsthand as you can get. And I'm ready for the next one. We got MicroCon 2023 coming up in Chicago. Hopefully we will see you there. And until next time, Aeternia forever, everybody.